Zoop it up.
Zoop it up. Zoop the house.
That was a Tough Cut original song called
We
Zoop
got
the
him.
House.
We got him. I'd like to believe that was candid Matthew and he didn't know we were recording. I'd really like to
you guys
believe that.
got me as I was zooping the house. Oh, shit, dude. Oh, God.
You're going to have to teach all our fans how to
I
zoop
can't
the
believe we
house.
already found the name of the episode. That's crazy.
that
Literally,
easy.
the like third set of words we said was Zoop the House.
It's just hard being content creators, you know? Like, it's
God,
just like
it's
everything we
such
say
a
is
struggle.
content. And that's
Yeah.
what's hard.
And
Everything we say is
it's
content.
all
makes
highly
me hard.
exportable, highly viral,
Mhm.
constantly popping off.
Yeah.
Anyway, with that
And that brings
said,
us to our sponsor, Raycon.
Raycon everyday earbuds.
Not
AJ
sponsored,
made them?
actually. Unless you
Are
want
you
it to
looking for a great way to Zoop the House?
be. Are you tired of your mom getting in the way when you're zooping in the house? Tune her out with Raycon.
With that, hello and welcome back. If you've listened with us before, we're the Tough Cut Podcast, and I'm Matthew.
I'm Zoop the Woo.
And I'm Jakers.
Jickers.
Zoop it up, zoop the
Zoop
house.
it up. Zoop.
I
zoop.
just keep thinking of the dance number in Smart House now with that. Like, that's what that makes me think of.
They would get down to that. Anyway, with that,
Do you think? I think that song is featured in Zoop the House.
yeah, but I think so too. This is part 3 of our long movies bracket. God, so many hours wasted for this one bracket.
Did any of you guys also rewatch any of the movies?
I think we've probably only gotten people to watch, hopefully, like RRR because it's newer, maybe.
Yeah, I bet we inspired someone to watch RRR, and I bet someone was like, "Hey, watching Lord of the Rings sounds pretty fun." And they watched.
I bet
Lord of the
someone was
Rings.
already like doing it like literally in the middle of it because of like Rings of Power or some shit. And there's
And
like,
then
guess
because-
what's the next?
because they were like doing their whole thing of like what you do when you watch the Lord of the Rings extended editions, and you do something else while you watch them.
Yeah,
And they were like, "Oh, I'll just listen to this podcast while I have this movie on."
yeah.
and they're like, "This is perfect. This is
Yeah,
perfect."
it's gotta be. Zoop the
Yes,
House.
part 3 of the long movies. These movies are really long. Coming at you in today's episode, though, we've got 2 matchups for you. In the first half of the episode, we've got Lord of the Rings for Two Towers Extended Edition versus RRR. Then the second half of the episode, we've got Lord of the Rings The Turn of the King Extended Edition versus the Hateful Eight Roadshow / Extended Edition. So should be lots of fun to be had.
Zoop the House.
Zoop the house.
Anyway, do like a little sound cue and just cut everything up until you saying Zoop the House, and they'll have no idea what we just spent 15 minutes talking about.
You know what else there's a lot of? Because I think you said a lot in there. This is gonna work. Spoilers. We'll be spoiling these movies, and they're long, so you know you probably don't even realize things we're spoiling are in the movies as we spoil them. That's pretty
There's
exciting.
A lot at stake for these to be spoiled.
Yeah,
Think
I
about
will
it.
say I'll be talking about endings a lot in at least one of these matchups, so
I
I will be
can't
spoiling.
With that, shall we hop into our first matchup? Alex, do you want to go ahead and introduce Lord of the Rings Two Towers?
You know that I do. I don't know what happens in this movie.
You pitched it.
J.R.R. Tolkien's The Two Towers, but it's a movie and it's really long. The gang's all split up, but then they like slowly worm their way back together in small groups. Merry and Pippin hang out with a cool tree. Sam and Frodo got a little nasty guy with them.
Mm-hmm.
Faramir is there. It's pretty hard, I think, to summarize the Lord of the Rings movies because so much
Just
happens
long
in them.
movies in general, I've noticed.
Yeah,
it's
there's just so
pretty
much.
hard.
Instead, because I guess that was a summary, I'm just gonna say what my favorite part of this movie is. Now I gotta decide what my favorite part is, guys. Why you put me on the spot like this? I know that's how the
what's your
podcast works.
Favorite part?
Yeah, why are you demanding me to tell you my favorite part, man?
Guys, what's his favorite part?
Zoop the House. I'm literally just gonna say that every time I don't know what to say. I think my favorite part of this movie is the entire Battle of Helm's Deep. So half the movie.
That's a good favorite part because that's also my favorite part.
It's so good.
That's my favorite part as well.
It's such a dynamic, climactic battle. There are so many ups and downs throughout it. You get like good lore in it. It's real good.
The battle itself also follows like a 3-act structure. It's the Battle of Helm's Deep is like one of the most fucking incredible sequences. I don't put the film as maybe ambitious, but like it's very good.
It's very good. It's long, so it qualifies.
That's true.
It's long.
But
it's a long movie.
The other side of this, we've got a newcomer, a titan to the
I know we got it's.
Jake, do you want to introduce RRR?
I sure do, and I also do want to say this movie's RRR came out 2022 by SS Rajamouli. I think we made the mistake before of saying that this was a Bollywood film, when in fact it is not a Bollywood film. It was just produced in and made in India. And it's this whole like controversy. I like educating our audience. You know, they might find this interesting.
I do.
So the Oscars will only let films that were claimed or labeled as international films. I say it like that because they're really stupid with what they call international and what they call local whatever American films. It's very, very dumb. Anyway, they only allow one entry. Like you can only, as if you are India or if you are like, you know, China, if you're whatever, you can submit one film for consideration to represent your country. And everyone was like, it's so dumb. Everyone was like, oh my God, India should submit RRR, right? That should be it. But India decided to submit another film that is a remake of Cinema Paradiso. Great movie, but people were really upset that RRR didn't get chosen. So in order to go around it, the producers who produced and developed it so it could go on Netflix in America said, okay, then we're going to lobby it to just be nominated for Best Picture under the American production. So that's kind of the drama there. Film's kind of interesting. Oscars need to do better, as always. But it's one of those things. I want them to do better, but if this gets nominated for literally anything, I will be watching and I want it to succeed. So yeah, that's just a correction there and also a little bit of history for that. This is a tale of two legendary revolutionaries and their journey far away from home is how they describe it. I think it's hilarious, and I'm gonna keep saying it mostly because I just want people to see this movie.
It rocks. It's so good.
Literally.
Yeah. This is just like, I still think of it, and when I think of just chemistry, I just like I haven't seen such great chemistry with two people as like I was so invested in a friendship. I felt like I was like writing like a fanfic. I've never reached that level of like care for characters or like that I felt like I was invested in their relationship. Like I'm not really like a fanatic in that way, but holy shit, was I in it for the long haul with these two. Like this would emotionally, and it did emotionally cripple me a couple times, but this would have like broken me if it didn't end up the way it ended up.
So,
you know,
picking up from something we were talking about a little bit with Lord of the Rings Two Towers, that I think is probably an interesting conversation. I think to some extent, both of these films, it's not quite as clear in RRR, have kind of like extended climactic sequences. RRRs traverse a couple different places with some lengthier low points, but I think we essentially have like a handful of back-to-back set pieces. What do you guys make of these movies' climaxes, in almost specifically the very last like ending resolutions? You get Gandalf charging down the hill with the supporting army, and you have our two boys literally fucking killing the British governor of India,
so
and destroying his entire mansion. Like those very ending sequence. What do you guys make of them? What do you prefer? What do you like about them each?
Yeah, I actually like this is a great thing because I kind of want to talk about something these two films do really well is, and I feel like you have to do this for a long movie, especially if it's an action movie. They're edging us. We are being edged. We are being titillated. Like we are. There is no other way to put it. I was being edged the whole time with both these movies, and it's hard because I'm trying so hard not to just have recency bias with RRR because it feels new and fresh, but it also feels new and fresh, so you have to give it credit. But the way that Two Towers edges and the way that RRR edges, I think RRR is just so fun because it edges me way more and in a way more like kind of like visually
I think it's very
way.
different, like because RRR has those like really smooth, fluid action sequences, and the whole movie does such a good job of like pushing you and pulling you to that next little like awesome kick-ass scene, you know? Mm-hmm. Whether it's like a cool sick-ass fight or just like an awesome dance sequence.
Yeah.
It really is trying to like edge you and make you get like the absolute most out of every single one of its scenes. I think what is different about that compared to Two Towers and the Lord of the Rings trilogy in general is that they are they're not trying to do that. Like they're giving you midpoint climaxes and things like that, but they are 100% meant to be constantly building, right? The midpoint action sequences and things are never, they never make you think like, oh, this is the biggest it's going to get, right? Because constantly there's the bigger threat.
It's almost like Two Towers, you know that there is this looming bit in the future that's kind of casting a shadow over everything, where RRR, it's constantly like not necessarily reintroducing or reinventing what that entity in the distance is, but like there is more finality for each set of these big scenes in RRR. So I feel like it pushes you almost to like euphoric completion multiple times, whereas Lord of the Rings is like building up to that one big one, you know?
Yeah. It's like many little nuts to one big nut, one super nut.
But it culminates to like nut. They're probably the same.
Oh, no, I activated
several
him.
Baby nuts. What's interesting about RRR, and I'm glad you brought it up, Matt, is that like you're totally right. Every single one of the action sequences in RRR, and I think this goes to what we talked about last week of like RRR, you think it's going to end, and then just keeps going and gets better. Like,
yeah,
so many of the action sequences in RRR could have just been the end of the movie.
It probably should have been. These men should be dead.
But like they're all so good. Like the movie could have ended after the first action sequence when I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the character's name. Raja?
Yeah, Beam and Raja. Yeah, Beam.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. When Raja is like getting the guy for the British officers. Like that action sequence was good enough where it could have been the end of the movie, right? There are so many good ones.
It's just like, it's challenging you as an audience to your face being like, you fucking like that? We know you like that. Here's something fucking else. Like take it, like it's taking me forcefully. We're like, Two Towers is a separate experience because it's telling you like, here's all this shit we're expanding. Yeah, we're fucking expanding. You like that? You like this detail? You like that there's gonna be more of this shit? Yeah, you do. And like, that's great too. But we're like, would you rather have one big completion or would you rather have a bunch of, I'm not even gonna say midi, a bunch of like mid-size,
they substantial
sedan, mid-size sedan
completions, and two also still a satisfying completion.
So I think though Two Tower, they're very tonally different, right? Like RRR, I think you're going in, you start watching that movie and it's just like, oh shit, this slaps. This is so cool and fun. Where Lord of the Rings, like Two Towers is a middle movie, so like you know it's not ending in this one, and this is the like beginning of the hopelessness that like pervades the rest of the series.
It has to be a low point to like kind of rise us up for the third. But I just imagine from your sentence, imagine if totally Two Towers was shot like
Dude. Wow.
Imagine the dance sequences we could have gotten.
Okay, and if you did that, finally Legolas shield boarding down that staircase would make sense.
Would.
That scene would be unchanged.
It would. Maybe they needed more of it, honestly.
Just imagine, like, I don't even know, Aragorn carrying Legolas on his shoulders as he shoots guys, like snipes them with his bow, and just, I don't know, some just the most absurd
Legolas
shit
shooting
possible.
arrows into Gimli's axe, and Gimli bats them away with the axe into other people.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
That would be sick.
The Ents take on Saruman with a dance battle.
Yeah. Now we're just describing Fortnite, unfortunately. This is just we're unfortunately just describing Fortnite.
So true.
I think that this is such a tough matchup. Not just because like these movies have philosophically different approaches to like creating their conclusions or telling their stories, but just like I feel like everything is done so well in both of these movies, from characters to like the story arcs to themes. There's a lot going on in these 2-3 hour plus movies. And I feel like I don't even know where to go to continue disentangling these, you know?
Well, you know, here's one thing I did want to mention. I don't know if it will necessarily help you, but it's something I need to get off my chest.
Two Towers leads up to the spider scene in the third one.
By that nature, Jake doesn't like it.
And I hate it. No, we'll get to that next. I'm kidding. I owned the video game Two Towers. I owned the GameCube, like one of those, you know, they used to make like video games out of like every movie, like almost immediately. Like that was like a big thing, especially like on GameCube. I remember like all the time there were like, you know, the 007 games, there were Lord of the Rings games. They're like they loved making these. Two Towers was one of the most fun. It was so fun. The Battle of Helm's Deep, like it was so fun, but it was also very hard.
So that's kind of playing on your head. So actually, I want to chime in with a similar experience.
Okay, cool. Thank God.
One, RR would probably make a terrific video game.
Oh my god, it'd be so fun.
Holy shit.
It'd be such a good video game.
It would be insane.
Oh my god. I'd want it to be VR so I could try doing the suspender stance with it.
God.
Like it's an endurance challenge and you have to
I bet in single player it would be like you can swap back and forth between the characters, but in multiplayer, like one of you would be Beam and one of you would be Raja. It'd be so fun.
It'd be sick. Co-op game of the century. But what I actually wanted to chime in with is that there's actually a Left 4 Dead 2 mod called Zombies, where you do the battle for Helm's Deep.
No way.
It's literally just the battle for Helm's Deep.
Can we play it? Can you and I? Can we figure that out? Can we play? I will literally buy a ticket and stay in your fancy home just so we could have a solder day and then follow it up by Left 4 Dead. Helm's Deep.
Wow. Yeah, it's sick. Like the bomb destroys the wall. You keep continually getting pushed further and further to the interior.
It was so hard in the GameCube game. It was so hard.
The fact that just like some dude out there made this though as a mod for Left 4 Dead is absurd.
That's powerful. Lord of the Rings is powerful. Like you almost forget sometimes how much of like fan culture is, and like Lord of the Rings has a lot of fans.
Yeah,
it's a very
lot of people franchise. That, as we are seeing with the Fallout, well, not so much Fallout. Most people generally are enjoying Lord Rings of Power.
Yeah.
However, there is a contingent on the internet that are just dumb and mad about every little thing, and I think it's so funny.
Bound to be.
Yeah.
Not that we're, I don't know, internet drama guys or something, but I'm a huge fan of author Neil Gaiman. And
love that
somehow, because he made a tweet being like, I think the show's pretty good. A bunch of fucking morons think he like wrote or directed the show.
Oh my god, I saw him
barraging him with like, when you for next season, don't you dare do this. And he's like, whenever I am working on Rings of Power, I'll be sure not to do that.
It's just funny that he keeps responding too. I love Neil Gaiman. That's
he's one of my favorite people.
That is great.
It's so good. Anyway, but yeah, there is an unmistakable fandom around Lord of the Rings, which is part of what makes this conversation, I think, really tough, is there is an undeniable cultural impact that those films had. And I think Two Towers, of course, plays a big role in that.
Yeah.
Do you like, what is going to come of the legacy of RRR? You know, it is not a Bollywood film. So it seems that the Indian powers that may be are maybe trying to promote other cultural soft power over it. So like, do you think that, you know, is this movie going to stand the test of time?
I think it really depends, and kind of like I'm glad that I mentioned all the specifics of like what they're trying to do for Best Picture and stuff. Like at least, look, I get that I'm also impartial because this is my side of like Twitter, my side of social media. And also, Twitter is not a real space, so you know, people like, people say some shit and it could just not be true in real life. And I just think that if it does get nominated and it does have this big community who's really rallying around it, then yeah, I mean, it could be remembered. It's obviously not going to be as remembered as Lord of the Rings, but I will say, and this is my opinion, and this is where I can differ from you guys, because, you know, I feel like am less of a Lord of the Rings fan than y'all, and so I can find more things. Like I can say things that aren't totally positive about it. For me,
Sure.
Two Towers is like probably I love Helm's Deep. I love the video game, but as far as like when I think of Lord of the Rings, I think of the first and third more than I think of Two Towers. And that's just like, for if we're talking cultural relevance and stuff, like this one, you have to have a second movie and it has to be good enough to like propel the third and do whatever. So it is important. And I get that as like, you know, as a fan, as a filmmaker, like I get it. But still, for me, I think that if we're talking all the Lord of the Rings, I think this is when people say they love the Lord of the Rings stuff, like they include this, but as a picture of the other two. When we talked about Fellowship and when we talked about Return of the King, I'm more easily able to just think of those movies. When it's Two Towers, it usually leads to, yes, and it's building because of this and like because where it fits in the grand scheme. But if we're just comparing Two Towers to RRR, I think for me there's an edge, at least a little bit with RRR, because I think it just stands out more to me.
I think that there's probably something to that to some extent. However, I do think that it's hard to understate the cultural value that the Battle for Helm's Deep had.
Sure.
I think it has gone on to inspire a ton of cinematic approaches to battles, which you can probably all date back to Akira Kurosawa if you're really trying.
You didn't pitch any of his movies for long. That's on you.
Hey. Shut your little mouth. There's a good reason for it.
But hey, I mean, if we're talking about cinematic battles, though, RRR also takes a very creative approach.
That's kind of the piece I want to give here, is that like there is probably some kind of DNA somewhere in RRR's battle scenes of that are inspired by, or at least, I don't know, filmically inspired by how Two Towers approach it. You know, it reinvented the modern approach to filming large battles. But RRR is almost, in my mind, like another reinvention of just like, or even like a perfection of just like fucking insanity put to screen for all of its battle sequences. Like, it is nearly impossible for me to say if I prefer the like desperation and fantasy realism stoked deep inside the Battle for Helm's Deep, the moments without music, the somber bits, the progressive holding on for the daybreak, and just the flush of emotions as Gandalf is charging down that hill, compared with just like the mouth agape, like, what will they do next? A guy has two fucking rifles being held up on the back of his friend, fucking sniping guys as he's like climbing over walls and towers. It's like, how do you think of that? Yeah, and then you put it to screen and it looks good. Like, yeah.
That's the thing. It's
insane.
Both of these films' credit, though, on paper, I feel like both of these movies should fail. You know, they're very big projects. They're very big projects to pull off. I just think it's extra bonkers what the fuck RRR was doing, because it leads more into like I don't want to use the word fun, because Two Towers is also fun. It's just like fun in a different way.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know the word, like, if you can help. Yeah.
I love Two Towers, and I don't think that this discredits Two Towers, but like
Mhm.
Lord of the Rings was going to have epic battles, and maybe they weren't guaranteed to be as good as they ended up being,
Mhm.
but they were always going to be good, right? People were always going to like them. And I don't think that discredits it. But RRR, I feel like, took a huge gamble with its action sequences. And they end up making the movie, right? Like, they're so ridiculous. But the way that they just go, like, full in on making these two guys just the coolest, sickest, most powerful, awesome people in the entire world, it rocks. It's so good.
Yeah, and they pull it off. I'd be like, yeah, those guys could beat me up.
100%. 100%.
And I would want them to.
Please.
That guy's one of the like sweetest motherfuckers ever. He's so sweet. He was so kind. He's like such a like nervous cutie with that like whatever white woman. And then I still look at him and be like, he would kill me. He would murder me. You know? I mean, the first character intro of the other dude literally is him taking on like 1,000 people and winning.
Oh my god, it's so cool.
It's such
That
an
might be my
absurd
favorite-
character introduction.
That might be my favorite scene in the whole movie.
Really?
Yeah.
It's one of my
It's
favorite
so
character intros because I literally like mouth agape whole time I'm like in this ride. Like,
And it's
Yeah.
like, because his character is so fresh in that moment, you're like, he's the protagonist. He's probably going to succeed, but you're like, you have no idea how until he's like throwing 20 people off of his back at one time. And you're like, oh, I see how now.
Yeah.
Like, he's just going to brute force his way through a crowd of thousands.
Mhm.
yeah.
Oh my God.
It's really good.
And so so both of these movies are actually not that far off in terms of the budget to make them.
Wow.
Interesting.
About $70 million to make RRR, and it, it's about 90 something million for Lord of the Rings. Which one, Lord of the Rings, it was obviously like absurd for the time, but it was a huge undertaking to make these three movies. That's 90 million just for this one, not for the whole trilogy, obviously.
Mhm.
But RRR is actually the most expensive Indian movie ever made.
Wow.
Makes sense.
And that is very interesting to me. However, it kind of puts into context, like, this movie looks great. I think all of its CGI is done really well. I think in general is actually like shot well. Like,
Mhm.
there
Yeah.
are
Super interesting shit.
interesting compositions. We get lots of the like beautiful sets, tons of characters, costumes, and so many other things. It's just kind of wild. How actually, I mean, speaking $30 million or $20 million in the terms of movies is pretty insignificant. But like, I don't know. If RRR had been given like a defining amount of money for like modern American cinema for like a blockbuster movie, imagine what on earth they could have done with it.
Yeah, what else could you even? It was the third highest grossing Indian film, I think RRR is.
That's crazy.
Wow.
I feel like the more, like, I love Lord of the Rings. I am so attached to it as a series. I think it is a fantastic accomplishment that they're as good as they
Absolutely.
are. On the other hand, I feel like the more I learn about RRR, its production, its potential cultural impact, it's all so impressive that this movie about two anti-imperialists just like blows me away by how good it is.
Yeah.
Like, this movie does not have the genre-defining power that Lord of the Rings does. What, like, they were adapting the work that defined modern fantasy,
Absolutely.
That is not the
Right.
case for RRR, and it still manages to like hold its own in this arena, and that's so impressive to me.
I think there's another thing, and I may, sometimes a lot of times on this show, we're getting towards like the end of it or whatever, and I shoot myself in the foot and say some shit that sways y'all's vote. It happens more often than sometimes. For me, and again, speaking as a Lord of the Rings fan, if we're talking long movies, and we watched these movies, and we did it because we love it. We're people who like watching movies. Obviously, we wouldn't be doing this podcast if we didn't. And I would more be comfortable and excited recommending RRR to anyone than I would Two Towers.
Interesting.
And that's not like a slight on Two Towers. That's just more like, look, I know some people will think this is extended edition, as well. Like, everyone talks about how it's like, oh, like is so long. You know, there's a bunch of rolling hills and stuff, which is like it's not true. Like we like it, and so whatever. It also is true to a certain degree, but I just think this movie made me so excited to share it with people. And Two Towers, like, I'm so glad I know it and I appreciate it, but I wouldn't necessarily go out of my way to recommend it like I've been going out of my way to recommend this film.
So, Jake, unfortunately, I do kind of think, for me, you've shot yourself in the foot with that one, because I was kind of on the fence, but then I kind of also disagree with you. And maybe this is philosophically what I think about long movies, but I think, like, Lord of the Rings Extended Edition specifically, if someone likes...
We talking all the movies, or we talking just Two Towers?
I think all of them, but, you know, for me, Two Towers, because Two Towers is my favorite. Okay. If I am talking to someone, and I don't think you should recommend long movies to everyone. Like, not everyone wants to watch a long movie. Not everyone wants to sit for 3-4 hours.
True.
If someone likes Lord of the Rings Two Towers, I am more excited to tell them about, oh, well, have you seen Lord of the Rings Two Towers Extended Edition? Than I am if someone's like, hey, I want to watch an action movie. And I'm like, well, have you seen RRR? RRR is really good. If you haven't seen it, you should watch it. But, like, if you like Lord of the Rings and haven't seen the extended editions, I am so excited for you to see the extended editions. Because I don't think, like, long movies aren't for everyone. I don't think everyone needs to like a long movie. But
100%.
If someone would like it, I am more excited for them to watch it than I am for them to watch RRR.
Interesting. I don't know if I just think fundamentally I don't agree just stylistically. I just think, like, no matter what, I'd be more excited for RR because I think it offers more of that, like, wow factor for me. I think Lord of the Rings Two Towers offers more, like, if you like it, you're gonna really like the extended edition for sure, but you have to get through both those barriers. Whereas RRR, I'm pretty confident if you have someone who's willing to, like, watch this movie, like, they're gonna like it. And that's just me, but it's also, like, I know that's a style, like, preference thing, but that's definitely, I just think it's insane.
It's tough. I think I land somewhere in between the two. I think, Alex, you make a fantastic point where introducing someone who already likes Lord of the Rings to the extended editions that more deeply embrace the world is such a, like, pleasant thing to get to do. But RRR in some ways is, like, a truly modern take on a spectacle film, and I want people to watch it. Basically anyone. And I know it's a tough buy-in, but I'm, you know, at the same time, like, I'm also kind of with Jake that, like, I want people to see this movie because I think that, like, once you get past the hump that it's long, you will probably like it, or hopefully like it. It's really tough because I see both perspectives, and I think there's probably some truth in both of them.
100%.
With that
well,
said,
luckily we're not voting just because we would recommend these movies.
True.
We would be mad people if we did that with long movies.
Yeah, with that said, we do need to vote.
Well, as usual, it sounds like Jake and I are on two different ends of the spectrum, and Matt is smack dab in the middle. So, Jake, wanna slide our votes in real quick?
Absolutely. I will be voting for RRR.
And I will be voting for Lord of the Rings Two Towers Extended Edition.
And I can't even fall back on the which cast would I rather have a splendid night in with and stroke upon their muscled physiques, because we've got plenty of hot boys in both of these casts.
Plenty of hot boys.
Plenty of hot boys. You know what we didn't talk about for both of these movies? They both got some cool bow and arrow scenes.
That's true.
A lot of cool bow and arrows.
That's very true.
One's popping through the trees. One's sliding down the stairs.
I think I am going to vote for RRR here. Not necessarily that I like it more as a movie, because I think I love both of these films in different ways. I think it comes down to that spectacle piece. This is such a fantastic take on, like, a modern spectacle movie. And I think it uses its time so wisely. Whereas for, like, the average person buying into a super long fantasy, like, somewhat sad fantasy movie, I feel like might be a little bit tougher in some way. But that also could just be, I don't know. I don't know if that's, like, a perfect summarization of my reasoning for the vote here.
No, it's hard. It's hard.
because I love both of these films, but I'm going to vote for RRR, so it will be advancing to our long movies finale. And there is one more chance for Lord of the Rings to make it all the way. Alex, if you want to go ahead and introduce Return of the King.
Yeah, Return of the King. They're still split up at the beginning of this one, but they're slowly squirming their way back together. A lot of them end up at Minas Tirith. It's a big white city on a cliff. And Frodo and Sam still got that nasty guy, but they're in the scary dark place. At the end of the day, the ring melts. Yeah, Stranger Things is there. There's like a big tower and it falls down. And then Frodo lives, but then he decides to go off to elf heaven.
True.
I think everything I said that time was different than what I said in the last summary of this movie.
Yeah, it's a long one.
It's a big movie.
Say. Perfect. Jake, do you want to go ahead and introduce Hateful Eight?
Yeah. This is Hateful Eight, the 8th film by Quentin Tarantino, 2015. It is about a couple people just hanging out in a cabin snowed in post-Civil War Wyoming, and people start dying, and they're like, the fuck's that about?
Crazy Snow Day.
Crazy Snow Day is the alternative. Look, I'll be completely candid. You ever know you're fighting an uphill battle here? You ever know? You ever be on the podcast? You ever be on the podcast and just know?
I actually don't know if most of our audience members know the experience of being on this podcast.
I don't know if most of our audience members do, but I certainly do.
I'm talking
to Ash.
I'm pleading to Ash right now. You ever feel that?
He really loved that Goosebumps episode.
I am not. I am not gonna sit here and pretend I don't know what's gonna go down.
What?
However, I'm gonna say the things I have to say as if I were arguing with two sane people who didn't love Lord of the Rings as much as they do. And I already know I'm gonna be met with backlash. Everything I say will be like, but wait, but also the other thing. But also, I think you're wrong because this does it better. But
actually, in the lore of the books, that orc is really cool and does this.
And don't get me wrong, I love y'all for it. I love y'all for it. And here's the thing. When we get to our finals, I think I will have a better time because, look, I like The Hateful Eight. Do I think it's probably a better movie than Return of the King Extended Edition? I don't know.
What is this argument?
I'm basically qualifying everything right now before I get attacked. I'm attacking myself and the movie first before you guys get a chance to.
Okay.
One of my main things that I was going to say that I know will be disagreed upon. Look, it's fine. At the end of The Hateful Eight, I gained way more satisfaction immediately watching Daisy hang than I did with Return of the King Extended Edition. I just thought it just kind of
So, Jake prefers killing women to going to elf heaven.
Racist white women, maybe.
Jake prefers killing women to short kings.
Racist, murderous criminals.
Yes. Okay, fair. He believes in capital punishment.
I believe in capital.
Just grumping on you. Finish your thought.
I remember watching this film and being just so satisfied because of how it was building and all that. I was like, is Daisy gonna get away with this shit? And just how horrid she just kept on building and rooting for Sam Jackson as I did, in the film. And then begrudgingly almost for the sheriff of Red Rock as well. I just wanted them to see so bad, when I knew that they were gonna die, I was like, if Daisy doesn't fucking hang. I just think they built up that conclusion so well that when she hung, I was so... And that could be saying a lot for me, that I have this innate bloodlust that I need to see justice. Maybe I need to suit up as Batman. I don't know.
It all comes together.
But Return of the King... And look, see, I'm even avoiding the whole spider in the room thing. Return of the King. I just think, yes, it did deliver on giving us an ending, but I do still think it takes a long ass time to get there for me to feel an immediate satisfaction. There could be an overwhelming, like, overarching, yes, we did it, we're at this journey, hooray for our characters. But something about that immediate watching her hang and just tying my hands and being done with it, I'm like, yeah.
Jake,
Okay.
I am very proud of you
Thank
for
you.
being brave enough to share your opinion.
Thank you. I'm so scared.
And truth be told, I think if I hadn't recently rewatched Return of the King Extended Edition, I might have agreed with you.
Fair.
I had the absolute joy of watching this movie with my wife for the first time through.
That's nice.
We
Damn it,
had
that's fucking
previously
lovely. Fuck.
we had previously attempted to watch all of them in one day.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, it fell through several times doing so, which means we never got to Return of the King.
Mm.
So this was her first time ever seeing it actually through the whole way, and we didn't watch them in a row. So, like, I was explaining things to her, but it was not, like, built on the back of she had just watched Two Towers.
Mm-hmm.
She wasn't home when I watched Fellowship of the Ring, so she hadn't watched Fellowship of the Ring.
Mm-hmm.
She was sobbing at the end
Love
of the
it.
movie. Like, she was impacted so powerfully by it. So, like, yeah, it's a long movie, but I think it's such a satisfying ending if you really are just, like, sitting there in it. And I agree with you. I think the Hateful Eight has a great ending. It's really powerful. It feels pretty good. But maybe I could have been persuaded that, like, alone watching Return of the King is not as satisfying an ending as, like, the whole thing together, and so that makes it a weaker movie. But, like, her reaction watching this movie showed me that it is still incredibly powerful, and so at the end of the day, I just disagree.
Yeah. I will say before, because I'd love to hear Matthew's thoughts on my comments as well. I think it's a great thing to have seen someone watch it for the first time. I do think a first time watch with this movie, like Return of the King extended, like, I think, yeah, you can get all those emotions, and I think that's great. And I will give that credit because that's great. That's powerful. I think because I've seen it before, I was getting a little impatient watching it. But with Hateful Eight, I feel like the pacing is just a little bit better for me. And so I've seen Hateful Eight a couple times now. Like, I am always satisfied at that ending. Whereas Return of the King, I'm not always satisfied. No. Matthew.
A lot to think about here. I think Hateful Eight has a very satisfying ending. Again, it's hard. It's a little bit hard for me to think about the very first time I saw this movie.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like I came into it with a kind of foregone conclusion that pretty sure basically all these fucking people are gonna die.
Yeah.
Once you hit like 2/3 through the runtime, I'm like, oh yeah, no, they're like, I don't think anyone's getting out of this mess.
Right.
And even expecting a very bloody ending, I think watching them hang Daisy and then reading the Lincoln letter is such a fucking fantastic ending because it brings so many plot points full circle. You get this moment of camaraderie between two men who know they're going to bleed to death before anyone's going to get here to help them. And I think that that's all really fantastically done. Hateful Eight is a fairly intimate movie.
Mm-hmm.
You get to learn a lot about most of these characters. Many of them, maybe not most of them, because half of them are living a lie.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it pulls it off really, really well. Lord of the Rings is going for a very different thing. It is going for this grand and epic, just stunning conclusion to the previous 9 hours of movie that you'd already watched, presumably. And I'm not necessarily saying it's more impressive or better to go epic than it is to go intimate. There are different skill sets, different types of stories, different approaches. However, I think there is maybe a hell of a lot more riding on Return of the King pulling it off. And I think it does pull it off. Whereas Hateful Eight, I think you could have been, it's a one-off. You could be pretty happy with the ride And if it fizzled rather than banged in the end, you might still be like satisfied as a film goer. Maybe not like, hell yeah. It might be like, yeah, it was good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I guess I gave a very non-committal answer.
And that's honestly better than what I was, think it was going to happen. So that's a net win for Jake.
Yeah.
Jake, what's your second point?
Jake forgot. What's your
all right?
next
We ready to vote?
Here.
Jake, in the wise words of I don't know, some head in Harry Potter, it's gonna be a bumpy ride.
It's gonna be a bumpy ride. Yeah. Yikes. Look, if it wasn't for the spider and Return of the King, I would probably be right there with you, because genuinely thinking about everything else, I really stand by my point that I think the ending of Hateful Eight is better, and upon a rewatch, I would find
like it's more satisfying each time. I think
it's more like I revisit Hateful Eight, and it's like an easier pill to swallow than going into Return of the King and swallowing it. I know that Return of the King is good. And I'm trying really, really hard. I really promise you to take away that I know that if I want to watch Return of the King and rewatch it, I know I have to get through something that terrifies me.
They need to make the spider cut for you.
Yeah. But like, I also know that it's good. I get another kind of satisfaction
from Hateful Eight.
And that's just me. I don't know.
Let me pose something to the two of you, because it feels correct inside of me.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like I need some validation. There is something somewhere that I feel like Samuel L. Jackson's character, one Marquise Warren, could kill the Witch King. Thoughts?
100%. It'd be fun. I would love the dialogue that would happen in that moment more than anything.
You know what? I kind of agree. And I wonder if it would be a fun, like, kind of racist spin on it, where, like, the Witch King is racist and, like, only considers him, like, 3/4 of a man.
Exactly.
And so he's like, I'm only 3/4 of a man. Shoots him in the face.
That's pretty fun.
I also don't think it's headcanon the Witch King is racist. I think he probably just is.
He's just super racist.
Yeah. I mean, like, yeah. Well, I'm glad we agreed on that part.
Yeah, agree. Cool. Conversation over. Are we ready to vote?
I can.
I mean, here's the thing. I honestly, like, I knew that I would be the one carrying any kind of comparison with these two movies. I'm curious if you have any other thoughts, you two, about it. But if not, I know where we're at here. I will not play games, and I don't think the audience is playing any games either. I know they're listening at this point just to hear our silly little sexy voices. But there's no mystery.
So this kind of also, in a way, gets into my kind of feelings of long movie. And maybe it's because of how I watched Hateful Eight. I watched the Netflix edition where it's 4 episodes. So it was broken up and felt rushed in some places and really long in others, which granted, I mean, same for Lord of the Rings, right? Like, it's a really long movie. There are parts that are slow and there are parts that are fast.
True.
But like, Lord of the Rings, to me, Return of the King Extended Edition, feels like a good long movie. And I didn't get that vibe watching Hateful Eight. And I think it is specifically because of how they cut it.
It's your experience.
Because it's my experience. Because the break between like the 3rd episode and the 4th episode is Channing Tatum shooting him in the balls. So it like ends on a cliffhanger, which is
so does
cool.
the chapter.
Right.
Itself,
no, but like
in like the regular cut. But.
Right. But like in the regular cut, it just like goes right into it. In the way that I watched it, he shoots him in the balls and it's like a TV cliffhanger. And then the next episode, like, you have to wait for the next episode to start. There are like credits, like it has to load up. Like, I know that's very specific.
You have to
my
sit with the fact that you
it.
Forgot that Channing Tatum was in the movie and he shows up again. And then you're like, holy fucking shit. We're like,
the point of it rocked because I didn't know Channing Tatum was in the movie. So it was like very cool and exciting to see. But it still was just like, it took me out of the experience because of the medium I was watching it in.
So
that's a shame.
Let me track this back for a second. You think it's a good movie, but you don't think it's a good long movie.
I think the way that I watched it did not feel like I was watching a long movie. Like, it didn't feel like I was watching a movie. It felt like I was watching.
That's a shame, because I literally picked this movie because of my experience in the theaters with it, and it sucks. Because,
That actually
the
sucks.
whole, overturn intermission that I had, it was, beautiful. Ugh.
Yeah, I was just gonna run this back and be like, well, Barry Lyndon is a continuous movie. I'm kidding.
But there's a different. But I thought that was a bad long movie. That's the difference.
Damn! Don't put him down while he's down.
I thought the Hateful Eight was good. I just didn't feel it was like a movie.
Alex prefers not a movie over bad long movie. Okay, cool. I just wanted to start to put together the flow chart here, and I think I got a good picture. So
he's holding a knife right now. He's doing one of those things where he's smiling, but he's just holding a knife.
I feel like to spite me, he's gonna vote for Hateful Eight.
Let's go. We get the spite vote.
That'd be pretty sicko mode of me.
Hey Matthew, I'll literally vote Barry Lyndon as well right now.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, that's not where this episode's at, and we do need to vote here. So, with that said, Alex doesn't think that Hateful Eight didn't feel like it was a movie.
Yeah, I'm the most defined. Well, Jake and I. Once again, the normal thing. I'm voting for Return of the King Extended Edition.
I'm voting for the
Jake
Hateful
doesn't
Eight.
like the spider, so...
Yeah, I can in good conscience vote on something that terrifies me, but I will be open about it in the final. I do promise.
And that leaves it to me.
If it makes it to the final, sorry. Suspense.
Yeah, suspense. And seeing as I cannot vote for Barry Lyndon in this matchup, constantly never able to vote for my true heart. Well, actually,
Sam Jackson's character was inspired by Barry Lyndon.
See, Matt,
it mixed with a bit of Akira Kurosawa. Oh God! Oh boy!
It's everything Matt loves.
And think about it; it's almost like Hateful Eight is a saw trap. If you really think about it,
yeah, because they're stuck there.
Yeah.
And getting shot in the
And
balls.
there's murder.
Jigsaw would probably do that. Murder's distasteful! I'm voting for Lord of the Rings Return of the King. You played yourself, Jake.
Once again, Jake, played yourself in the end.
I always do.
Jigsaw would never murder anyone. Murder's distasteful.
Murder's distasteful.
With that thing, I don't even know if that was voting.
It was. We voted.
It's democratic. We have our finale lined up with RRR versus Lord of the Rings Return of the King. Return of the King Extended Edition. It's going to be a doozy.
It'll be a doozy.
So if you enjoyed today's show, go ahead and review it on all of your favorite podcasting platforms. Follow us on social media at Tough Cut Pod. Who should they share today's episode with?
Send it. Oh, you go.
You
mine
go.
Was dumb. No, mine was really
dumb.
dumb.
No, I want to hear it now.
No, mine was dumb. You go.
I was going to say share it with anyone at all that you know is a fan of Barry Lyndon, because I know that will be a new demographic that we haven't.
Yeah, it's someone who has not yet seen the show. There are literally a dozen of us.
Got any Barry heads in the house? And I'm not talking the HBO show. Sorry.
Actually, we call ourselves Lyndoners.
I am literally falling asleep listening to this conversation.